Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to News and Views on Salam Media with Fazl and Franceman Talib. In this segment, we're paying special tribute to Marhoom Dr. Yakub Essack, who was the head of Gift of the Givers' medical team. Joining us online, we have the founder of Gift of the Givers, Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Imtiaz, and welcome to the
Walaikum
show.
salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Dr. Imtiaz, it's obviously a very sad day in terms of just sort of the context and the concept of an individual like Dr. Yakub. What is the message, I think, from the Gift of the Givers with regards to his passing?
It's a tragic loss. It's a great loss for us as gift for the givers. For me personally, I've known him for 32 years. And the 32 years has been together in acting in the interest of the people of the country, the continent, and the world. It's a relationship of service, where we work together to assist people all over the world. But more than that, it was also a spiritual relationship. It was a very special relationship that I shared with Yakub, where, we were so close to the extent that he knew what I was going to say before I said it, and the same the other way around. I knew what he was going to say before he was going to say it. And quite often, when the team members would approach him and ask him to look on this matter and that matter, he would tell them exactly how I'm going to answer. And he was always correct. He was very special. He was soft. He was the type of person you needed, especially in a disaster situation. Somebody who was calm, who was humble, who had the time, who would speak to people, who would reassure them, he would listen, and he would make you feel at ease. And especially when newcomers, new team members, we don't train you in the office. We train you in a disaster site. And sometimes that can be, in most cases, it can be very, very tense and frightening. And Yakub would be the one to put everybody's nerves at rest. And also, doctors don't like to go to a psychologist or a counselor, but they saw that in Yakub. On his forehead, you will see the word counselor, even though it's not written there. And strangely enough, even the new team members, when they see Yakub, even the journalists, even the people that we help, that we go to, don't know Yakub. They just see it in his face, on his forehead. This is a guy you can talk to. And everybody used to go to him. Everybody felt so reassured, so calm, so relaxed after Yakub saw them. In the community, we were joking that we need to send him back to medical school to be in charge of family medicine, because he was the loving example of what family medicine is all about. He won't rush the patient. He won't be in a hurry. He won't worry about only the medicine, the injection, and the tablets to give, or the X-ray or the ultrasound. He would sit and listen, counsel a patient, and he would take it beyond the office, beyond the practice, about issues at home, with the family, with the children. He even sit with people after hours and counsel them. Got nothing to do with the medical aspect of it. It's got to do with the psychological aspect. This was the type of man that he was. Always willing, available. Very special heart for the orphans, for widows, for the elderly, for the physically challenged. Yakub was there for everyone. He was just special. To lose him, I just say Allah took him too early. He had so much more to offer. We need another 10 or 15 years out of him.
And on that note, we have a few tributes, and I think it's one that is particularly relevant to what you were saying, Dr. Imtiaz. And this one is from Gavin Hilliard, and he said, "My dad always told me you get walkers, talkers, and doers. Dr. Essack was a doer. R.I.P. Doctor." So, in terms of his legacy. In terms of what you highlighted, obviously, that he was the person that everybody felt so comfortable to speak to. But in terms of from being head of the Gift of the Givers, sort of medical division, what does that mean, and what did that translate to in terms of actual activities out in the field?
When we are about to intervene in a disaster, I'll send in one voice. Yakub, we're intervening, get ready. That's all I need to tell him. Yakub will then start activating the rest of the medical teams, looking at medical supplies, take out the lists, and he works with a doctor called Dr. Kasim Barat, who is also the secondary team member. They work together as joint medical heads. And he would know exactly from the past, okay, in the last 10 years, in this mission, we needed that. We had too much of that. We had too less of this. We ran short of that one. We didn't cater for that one. And we built on our experience and our profile over the years. And Yakub would know exactly what list to sort out, which company to call, where to get it from in an emergency. Now let's take a practical example locally. 24th December 2022. Early in the morning, the tanker explodes in Boxburg. I'm sure you remember that incident. In minutes, Yakub gets the team together and says, okay, we need to source certain supplies because Tamil Memorial Hospital will not have enough. It's 24th December. All the corporate companies are going to close. We're only going to see them in 2 to 3 weeks' time. What we're going to do? He activates all the key people who deal with that kind of emergency within my team. And everybody gives the names of the companies where they deal with. In 1 hour, 10 minutes, what Jakub's arranging everything, in charge of that mission, supported by my teams. In 1 hour, 10 minutes, we sourced, we purchased, we took ownership, we collected, and we delivered to Tamil Memorial Hospital. That's the kind of efficiency the man has. I'm not in practice. I stopped practice in 30th June 1994. I need somebody who's at the coalface, who knows the new medical supplies, the new drugs, the reps. It's more than just a company. It's the guy at the top, who to speak to, who to make after hours calls. Yakub was that kind of person who could speak to anybody and everybody, and we can't get it from the company, then try a friend at a private hospital or another friend in another practice or from some other place. That was, he was so involved. From the one side was the human side, he's completely compassionate human and addressed people from the emotional point of view. But from an organizational point of view, he was the person who knew exactly what to get, from where to get it, and how fast to get it.
So here's another tribute, Dr. Imtiaz, this time from Betsy Key. She said, "We are poorer for Dr. Essack's passing. He truly epitomized, as does everyone linked to Gift of the Givers, what a good human is. May his family and friends find consolation in knowing that his name will live for a long time." So if we look at the your particular relationship, which you spoke about, spans 32 years, both obviously in a working relationship, and then obviously also people you develop friendships and likings to people that you spend a lot of time with. I think my question, Dr. Imtiaz, is to you personally as an individual outside of the work that the two of you did within Gift of the Givers. What does that loss mean for you?
It's strange. We never did things together. This relationship was very special, but without doing too much things together outside Gift of the Givers. We would only meet. I'm not the out socializing type of person. I'm a workaholic, 365 days a year, 24/7. I deal with disasters. That's all that I do. I'm not a socializing type of person. I would meet Yakub at a conference, and sometimes for 2 to 3 months, we won't say one word to each other. We won't talk, we won't phone, we won't message. And we will pick up from where we stopped. That's how good our networks were connected with each other. Our spirit, our soul, our mind, our intellect, we were connected. We would just pick up from where we stopped, and we would know exactly where to go on. We would confide with each other in terms of intimate issues, family issues, personal issues, and we would discuss. Yakub was a very religious man, in terms of prayer, Quran, spirituality, talking about tariqah, talking about Sufism, and we would always discuss matters. And the other thing, he was very ethical and very, very conscious about how to run things. And he would question himself 100 times, and he would ask you and said, "Are you sure? Is this the right thing to do in my practice? Am I not breaking a rule? Am I following the right principle? Am I right? Will Allah be pleased with this?" He was that kind of super conscious human being, and he brought that consciousness and that ethics and that values into the organization itself. To me, to answer your question, it's a great loss, because it's one of the. I've had two friends in inverted commas. One that was with me from medical school till he moved away to Australia, and then Yakub. Yakub and I have been the closest from all the team members, closest without having to say anything to each other, just knowing that we know each other. He was a very big support for my families. Yakub, whenever there's family issue, Yakub was the person everybody turned to, even within the organization. And as an aside, you mentioned that somebody gave the tribute now and, care for the family. In spite of his busyness, Yakub was a devout, dedicated family person. As a husband, a father, a brother, a son, he was absolutely dedicated to family. which was very, very special, given the type of business he was involved. He was not only involved in Gift of the Givers. He didn't have more than 3 to 4 practices. He was involved in clinical trials. He was the president of the Islamic Medical Association. He was involved in the mosque. He was involved in local communities. He was involved in local organizations. Always wanted to give advice. Never tired or to say, no, I can't do it. No is not the word that he understood. He helped everybody at great, stress to himself and to his family.
And I think one of the things that you touched on, Dr. Imtiaz, is obviously that you've known him for a very long time. And I want to share a tribute from somebody else that's also known him for over 30 years, and that is Brother Ashraf Garda, who is a journalist. And he said the following: I'm deeply saddened by the passing away of Dr. Yakub Essack from a cardiac arrest. Friends for over 30 years, we were neighbors, Tommies, squash partners, paddle players, and confidants. He was a community builder. He was a nation builder. Besides being a medical doctor, he was a key member of the Gift of the Givers team and is a past president of the Islamic Medical Association of South Africa. He was the first person my wife Jamila Garda messaged when we suspected I had COVID. Yakub was a community champion. We connected. This is a huge loss. May Allah grant him the gift of Jannah and grant his family the comfort of dealing with this monumental loss. Champion South Africa. Amen. So Dr. Imtiaz, I think
it was Yakub who introduced me to Ashraf Garda when he was staying in Homestead Park many, many years ago. And Ashraf was at the funeral also on Wednesday, and he even interviewed me yesterday. We go along back, and Yakub is the connection between us.
And I think one of the things that I'm getting in terms of just the legacy of this individual, which I've not met, but just reading the sentiments expressed by people from different walks of life, it shows that he was able to connect with different types of people from different walks of life. Would you characterize that as part of his character?
Yes, he was amenable to anybody, black, white, Indian, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, Jew, atheist, belief, no belief. Yakub never judged anybody. All Yakub wanted to know is, what is your problem and how can I help? That's all he had in his head, nothing else. He doesn't look where you were from, what you look like, how rich you were, how poor you were, what you can offer him, what you can't offer him. Have you got a problem? It's my Islamic duty to help. How can I help? And he will try his best and stretch himself out and do what he can. People loved him. We're getting so many messages from people. Wow, we know, people that we know, but we never knew they knew Yakub in the way that they know him, and they would all tributes are coming out now. He was a good doctor. He treated my daughter. He saw my father. He saw me. I gave me advice. Those kind of messages are coming through from everybody, and we're surprised the amount of people that he connected with. And even on social media, I'm not on social media, but the feedback I'm getting from my team is it's just gone crazy, the amount of people saying things about Yakub. And yes, whatever they're saying that is good, is true, because this man was a perfect person, a total humanitarian, cared for humanity, very honest, as I mentioned before, in integrity, ethical, just wish good for everybody, not selfish, not spiteful, not jealous. But if something is wrong, we're always trying to find a fault in him first before trying to blame anybody else, and thinking it's his fault, and I would tell him it's not your fault. I'm more brutal, I'm completely different from him. And I say, it's not your fault. You're on the right. Stop worrying and stop, doubting yourself.
I want to take an excerpt out of quite a long tribute from Dr. Aisha Soni, who's a specialist neurologist and obviously also a medical volunteer with Gift of the Givers. And I just want to, take one particular aspect, and I think it weaves into what you've been saying, Dr. Imtiaz. And this is what she said: reading through the messages on the core medical Gift of the Givers group, it's clear that Uncle Yakub's passing has left an insufferable blow and absence on all the members. There's a pervading theme that permeates through all messages of grief. Uncle Yakub's unfaltering sincerity in serving humanity and his kindness to all those around him. As everybody recollects their fondest memories of him, a magnanimous man who played the role of a fatherly figure to many is easily built, and his willingness to always be a helpful hand to those who needed it was a presence which was consistent in his personal and professional life. Working with Gift of the Givers gives you a second family, and Uncle Yakub was undoubtedly a dad to many, a confident, a sound advisor, and a patient listener. He was a loving husband, father, and brother too. His loss will be a huge void for his family, but a massive loss for humanity. I think I want to just, kind of pull a string out of what Dr. Soni was saying, just with regards to our or the role of Gift of the Givers as ambassadors for South Africa, and then his role working within your team as an ambassador for Gift of the Givers. How would you describe that within the context of some of the tributes I think that are coming through? That kind of, I think, resonates with this notion that when you work in the development or humanitarian space, it is a selfless act in many ways.
Well, Yakub, he was because of his nature, in terms of international relations and where he went, and personality and PR and diplomacy. People just loved him wherever he went, whether it was in the airport when he met people, whether in transit, whether you got up and when you got up on the other side and just met people and officials and people of another country. Remember, when you go to a disaster, it's all about trust. People don't know who you are. They don't know your skill. Don't know if you're going to help them, but you're going to destroy them. They have no idea who you are and where you come from and what you're going to do here. Because unfortunately, in our business, there's lots of dishonest people who come to take a chance, who are not skilled enough, and we've seen people die at people's hands. And so you don't blame the people on the other side. But Yakub's tender, soft nature makes people trust the whole team because of him. I mean, there's a lot of people in the team who've got positive personalities, but Yakub was the softest one. And actually, when she says uncle, and everybody turns to him, in fact, we have a core team. Yakub was the eldest in the organization in terms of the core team. And it was very strange, funny, when the younger doctors don't call him doctor, they call him uncle. Now, that's very unusual. Doctors will call you doctor, but the junior doctors all uncle. And we, both of us, used to laugh and say, they make us look so old. And but he got along with the younger doctors, the ones his age, and those outside the teams who were senior to us. Yakub got along. He could get along with anybody, and in terms of and because of his ethics, his values, his personality, his kindness, his compassion, his caring nature, he won over hearts wherever he went. And people looked at this man and said, we can trust this guy. And if he's part of the team, we can trust this team. And we have no doubt whatsoever, we'll be fine. They don't say the words. Nobody says the words. But you can see in the body language, they're quite comfortable when you start meeting him and other team members.
That was Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman, who is the founder of Gift of the Givers, and we were paying tribute to a renowned South African in terms of his consciousness, in terms of his giving, in terms of his humanitarian work, and that was Dr. Yakub Essack, who was the head of the Gift of the Givers medical team. Shukran so much, Dr. Imtiaz, for joining us, and we make dua that Allah grants Dr. Essack Jannatul Firdaus, a high place in Jannah, and that all the work that he's done in conjunction with yourselves and your team at the Gift of the Givers, that it weighs heavily on his scales.
I mean, what people don't know is what he's done the Gift of the Givers. People know. People don't know what he has done silently. Even I don't know that. He has done a lot of silent work, and one day it will come out and people will start talking. May Allah bless him in abundance for that. And I really feel for his family. May Allah help them, hold their hand, his wife and his children, because his wife is much younger than him, and his children are still very, very young. For the service that was given the country, the continent, and the world, I pray Allah holds their hand and takes them forward. To them, the loss is totally immeasurable.
Ameen. Ameen. Shukran, Dr. Imtiaz. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.